Thank you, Tina. Thank you, everybody. I know I don't need this, but just in case, what the heck? I'll use it. Today, we're talking about the miracle of community. Because community is a really interesting vehicle for humans. Humankind is meant to live in community. It's how we evolved. And there's good news and there's bad news about community. What's the good news? Well, you know what? It's the same as the bad news. Community is an echo chamber of your own beliefs. So I remember one time I went to this workshop on codependency. And I can't remember what the first name of this fellow was, but his last name was Bradshaw. Does anybody remember those? What was his name? John Bradshaw. And he was so entertaining, and he was really helping us learn how to take care of ourselves without becoming grouchy, nasty kind of folks. So it was a delicate maneuver, but one of the things he talked about was how what we experience outside of ourselves is a mirror of our beliefs. So he gave an example. Now, he lived in Houston, Texas. How many of you have been to Houston, Texas? Did you ever go to the Galleria? The Galleria is this mega shopping center, and the traffic outside the Galleria is horrendous. And back in those days, this was the 80s and the early 90s, there was no traffic light. So the people pulling out of that parking lot had to pray. The power of prayer was what got them out of the parking lot. And he told this story of sitting in the back seat with this guy who was at the wheel. They were a whole group of guys. And there was a guy in the front seat. And the front seat guy goes, oh, and he was the one who lived there. He was the local Houstonian. And he was like, oh, we'll never get through. People never let you in. This is, you have to go around the block and back over there. And he had this whole gymnastics. The guy who was driving said, no. People always let us in. There's no issue. And he smiled at the person coming on. They stopped and he pulled out, and the guy in the front seat was utterly dumbfounded. Because what? He experienced the reflection of his beliefs. This is who he was. And he believed in that. And life couldn't help but mirror it back. That's true in community. But here's the miracle of community. Because it's an echo chamber, what it does is magnify what we've got going on. So if what we've got going on is judgment and finding fault, we are going to have a wonderful time in community because there will be so much experience of getting to exercise that. And people will never fail to produce the kind of situations that we think they're going to produce for us. Also, it's an echo chamber if you want to start doing spiritual practice and you want to start living from that place of embodying spiritual qualities, what we call the God qualities. You get to see that reflected outside you as well, beautifully and perfectly. And for most of us, community is a mixture of both. It's a little of each. We've got a growing edge, and then we've got the drop off to hell edge. They're both there for us, let's face it. And we know now, statistically, there are few things more beneficial for longevity than community and having a close community. Having a community where you're known, you're seen, where you count, where people appreciate and respect you for who you are. The value of that means greater health, greater peace of mind, greater well-being, And for all of us over the age of 50, community also gets to add another 10 years to our life if they have found statistically, if you're part of a close and loving community. And so the value here is enormous. And I'm going to read you a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh, who built and maintains, well, he's passed away now, but a fabulous community of Buddhists. And here's what he has to say to us. A good community is needed to help us resist the unwholesome ways of our time. You can think about what those unwholesome ways are. I don't need to fill in that blank. I'm sure you've got it handy in your mind already. Mindful living protects us and helps us to go in the direction of peace. With the support of friends in the practice, peace has a chance. So that's one of the things we get to do in community, is we get to actually build a world that we want to live in. And you know, right now, we are on the cusp. Actually, we've fallen over the edge. We just don't want to admit it yet. Of a total new world order happening right before our eyes. The old world is gone. We know that. We don't know what's coming. And here's one of the things Jung said about the unknown. What is the first thing that we throw into that gap that we know nothing about, that's utterly unknown? Monsters. It's the nature of the unconscious, apparently, that what we first project are our fears. This is the whole body-mind complex trying to protect us. And so we don't know what's coming in the future in the world. We do know that enormous changes are upon us. But this is what I want you to know. You were born for these times. This is why you're here. You've been saved for such a time as this, exactly this. Because what happens in that gap, in that crack? We get to have the ability to choose what we want to experience. And so today, community is what we are going to become consciously aware of. We're going to start looking at what are some of our beliefs about community, where did they come from, so that we can bring them up out of our unconscious, out of the subconscious part of ourselves. And now we get to make choices about that. So a lot of us kind of have a lukewarm relationship with community. It could be a love-hate relationship. There are times when we just love it, and there are times when we go, oh, God, I can't stand it. And there's others of us that like to sit on the fence. We're not 100% in. We're not 100% out. We're not joiners. We don't really do this. But here we are. We keep showing up. And others, some of us, have dove in feet first, gone down deep, thought we were going to drown, rose up again, got a breath, and kept diving into this ocean of community over and over again. So wherever you are, whichever of those templates, or maybe none of them, fit you, don't worry about it. There isn't a bad and wrong one in the midst. It's just becoming conscious of what is our pattern. How are we operating inside community? So I've produced a worksheet for you, which you may or may feel whatever you feel about that. And I'm going to invite you to pull out your worksheet, because we're going to go through some of these. You do not have to get out a pen or a pencil. This is for you to take home and honestly do your own contemplative work and work on this at home and think about it. But we're going to get a good start today. And the first part is, I'd like you to go back before the age of 10. What was the community you grew up in like? And let me give you some examples. You had a neighborhood community you grew up in. You had an ohana, an extended family you grew up in, not just your family, but a bigger, larger picture. What was that like? What was school like? There's another community you grew up in. A lot of us went to church or a temple. What was that community like? So just start to get a feeling. And maybe there were some other communities that you belonged to. Think back to what those communities were before you were 10 years old. And then I got a question to ask you about that. Inside your communities that you grew up in, would you say that your family of origin, was respected and appreciated? Did you feel as a child a sense of belonging in that community? Did you feel safe? Did you feel you were free to be who you were? And just note that, just think about that. Think about how your family was in community, what the flavor and the feeling of community was like, and how you felt as a child inside that community. And just make a note of that. And then let's go to our teen years, where our peers start to become really important to us. What was your peer group like? What was that community like? What was the flavor and the tone and the sense of it at your high school? Were you part of a sports group? Did you join the chess club? What were all these different communities that you were part of as a teen? Church, temple, school, neighborhood, peers, interests. Think about that. Did you feel that you were seen and respected and appreciated in your teen communities? Did you feel you were safe to be authentic and fully who you were? Just make a note of that. Think about that. And now let's move to, I know my printer does this upside down. Today's communities. Start thinking about all the communities you belong to today. I know a lot of people in this room belong to Chorus. There's a community. Some of us belong to CERT. Some of us belong to other wonderful communities in this area. Start to think about the communities you belong to. Is there like a sense of community in your neighborhood? There might be. Some of you live in an area that's got some rich traditions and you've joined that by moving there. So what are the interest groups? Some of your friends? What's your chosen family? That's your ohana today. I like to think of our ohana today as that extended family we've chosen, and it can include real family members. But often these are people we've chosen and accumulated over the years. So think about the communities you belong to today. For you, think about this. Is there a sense of we in your communities? And what is a sense of we? It's getting beyond just what's in it for me. And we begin to feel this sense of community, and we're so engaged that we identify with it and we want it to be healthy. We want it to do well, and we're willing to give of our time, talent, and resources into those communities because it's a we. And when that we happens, something magical happens within us. A magical thing that happens within us is like Arliss's beautiful meditation for us and the One Love song. For a moment, we get to remember we're part of something much bigger than just ourselves. And that blurring sometimes of that me becoming we is a beautiful experience of oneness. and joining and connection. Now, one of the things I love about Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, is that I consider Ernest Holmes to be a spiritual reverse engineer. He reverse engineers spiritual practice. And what does that mean? He takes the end result and he makes it the practice. So, what does that mean for us? It's a great way to trick that ego mind that likes to tell you, oh, you're never going to make it. You can't meditate. You can't even be nice for 5 minutes. Look at all those judging thoughts you've got going on. And what's worse, you just told a little lie over there. And, we all know that part of our brain that wants to argue with us. Well, it really comes out sometimes when we're doing spiritual practice. So this is where the reverse engineering is so powerful. We take the end result, which is the truth with a capital T. We are one. And we look at how can I practice oneness in my life? Here's one of the ways. In community, every single person in our community, in our gathering, is different than the other one. We all come from different parts of the world. We've had different upbringings. We have sometimes different cultural backgrounds, but it becomes, in a way, not as important as that essential essence that we share, which is our humanness and our connection to Source Spirit. And we get to practice that in community. And one of the ways we practice it is by celebrating our differences, believe it or not. It's not asking everybody to become a homogenous one, everybody the same. That would be really boring. Instead, it's about celebrating and recognizing the beauty and the uniqueness of each other. So this brings me to the concept of the beloved community. How many of you have heard that term before, the beloved community? It's something that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. talked about, and he is known for this. And in Science of Mind today, this has been resurrected as a profound pathway for us in our communities. And so I would like us to look at how do we create the beloved community together? And what does that mean? What is a beloved community? Well, he had his definition, and I'm going to give you mine, and I want you to find yours. So my definition of the beloved community is one where we embrace and allow each other to have the space to be who they authentically are. We are all works in progress. We are all doing the best we can. I know that is absolutely the truth for every single one of us. And so in the beloved community, we accept, support, and appreciate each other. And as a result, we begin to create this synergy of love and care and creativity. Because when we are allowed to be our authentic self, it sparks this free flow of creativity within us. It's a natural well. So let's move into this part, and I'd like to ask you to take a moment to reflect on if you could create the community you want to live in, the community you want to live in for the rest of your life. That's a big concept, the rest of your life. What would it be like if you could be part of and enjoy a community? How would you describe it? And I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. What does it feel like? What would it look like? What would be some of its essential qualities? So let's look at that. What are some of the essential qualities? Now, for me, it's love and acceptance. Has anybody else got some essential qualities that they feel it's important for the beloved community to manifest? Would you be willing to say that unto the room? Arla? Fun. Eddie? Kindness.
A place where kids can flow from house to house.
Oh, a place where kids can flow from house to house. Wonderful image. I love that. Anyone else?
Music.
Music has got to be part of it. Thank you, Moses. I know we love music. And art. Pam's our resident artist. Thank you, Pam. Yes, absolutely. So we've got art, we've got fun, we've got music. Food. Where two or more gathered, we eat. So true. So just looking at some of these essential qualities. Kindness, love, acceptance. I'm going to invite you to go home and think this week and notice, are you living those qualities? Because what community is us. So it's an opportunity once we identify what those qualities are. Now you know what yours is to do. How do you know? Because it occurred to you. You thought about it. It's important to you. So that's yours. And so I have to ask myself, am I being loving and accepting? And then I want to look at the places where I'm not and see if I can move that dial just 10%. It doesn't have to be a huge gesture, but just a little bit better and better and better at becoming the love and the acceptance that I want to see in the world. And so that's the piece that you take away today is what is the essential for you in the beloved community? And how can you reverse engineer that and now make that your practice? I'm going to start making my feet walk this talk and catching myself. No shame, no blame. Shame and blame are energy that's wasted. That's not it. You fall off the balance beam. What do? You get back up and try again. And it's the same thing with these beautiful qualities. We get back up and we try again. So that's your assignment for this week, is to take these qualities and see if you can find a way to live them. Now, what's my last part of my talk? Last part of my talk is something personal I want to share with you. I went to the workshop that Riata Ryan and Martin Peters gave us last week, and it was on the ability to receive love. And what I got out of that workshop was mind-blowing for me. I was just there to help set up the room and, take the money and do the stuff that the admin person's going to do in the room, right? And I ended up sitting in the circle and fully participating and getting enormous insight out of it. And one of it was how defended I am against being loved by you, by community. And when people give me compliments, how often I want to shut it down, turn it around. Oh, but you're so much greater, that kind of thing. And they were really drilling home to us how important it is to receive, that no one can give if you don't receive. If you're a rock and somebody's pouring water on you, they've wasted their time. And it's up to me. The most loving thing I can do is to take it in and receive it. And I realized that my role can get in the way and act as a defense. And I'm letting it go. I'm letting it go. But the takeaways we need to risk. We need to risk those uncomfortable places in community. We need to risk letting it in. We need to risk being important to somebody, or that they care for us, or that our contribution matters to them. We need to allow that to happen. That's an essential part of community. You are essential to the whole. And allowing yourself to feel that and experience it and take it in is a key piece for building the beloved community. So as I had that realization last weekend, I also realized that I love you all very, very dearly. And I have a niece, Dura Rao, the youngest of my brother and sister-in-law, and she lives in Brooklyn, and she's a phenomenal human being, and she wrote this poem. And this poem is for Valentine's Day, and this is my Valentine to you. All you love, consummated, unrequited, platonic, tectonic, fists of fire and cool waters, ancestral, furry and feathered, mighty oak and sea turtles, little toes and wrinkled smiles, all you loves that ever dared break the seal of your soul and let me take a taste, left me hanging, left me swaying, filled me up, poured me out. Easy as a breeze or feisty as a hurricane, let me say, there's nothing I would rather do than raid God's cupboard. There is nothing I would rather do than raid God's cupboard and get drunk off a cosmic cordial and make a meal with all of you. And in that table, as we sit together, where everyone pounds the table in jubilee, holding hands in blessing for the love of you and 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 you. And now Samantha and Matt will sing Stand By Me.